Hey everyone, this is a quick demo video to show how we can build a FastMCP server that integrates with Microsoft Entra. So let's just see how it works. Here inside VS Code in my mcp.json, I have the MCP server deployed that uses FastMCP plus Entra, and it is deployed to an Azure Container App URL here. So we'll start this server. VS Code pops up this dialog here that says, oh, this server wants to authenticate. That's because VS Code saw that this server requires authentication. And so it's going to try to go through the DCR OAuth dance in order to have me authenticate to the server. So I will select allow. And then I will open this domain here. And what we see is a FastMCP web page. And that's because we are using the OAuth proxy pattern, because Entra does not actually have proper support for DCR. So instead, FastMCP implements an OAuth proxy on top of Entra that properly implements the DCR flow that is required by MCP auth. So here we get this request and say, okay, we're going to allow that access. And you can see it very quickly jumped to Entra. That was very fast, but it did very quickly jump to an Entra URL to do the login, and then redirected back to the VS Code URL, and VS Code redirected back to the actual application. So that all happened very quickly, but it did the OAuth dance, and it was able to connect to the server, and we can see that the server does have 3 tools. So now we can actually use the server. So I'll go to my tools configuration and say, all right, I want to use this Entra server. You can see it has 3 tools, adding a new expense on behalf of the logged in user, getting the logged in users stats at this one. And then also there's one that's only for admins in a particular Entra group, which gets expense statistics across all users. So we'll try the user ones first and then the admin one. So now I can go to my GitHub Copilot and say, okay, I bought, $44 of forks on my Amex today. And it's going to look at the available tools and decide which ones it can use. And in this case, it didn't find the right tool. It found ESP. I wonder if this is the problem. I did not enable the server. So let me properly enable that server and we will restart it. All right. So it definitely helps to actually enable the correct server. So here it's found the tool that it wants to call add user expense, and it has all the args based off of my comment. So I will click allow. And that sends, a request to the server, and it says it successfully did it. So let's test. List all of my user expenses and comment on their usefulness. All right, so hopefully it is going to, there we go. It's going to call get user expenses, and that doesn't require any arguments because it's just going to do it based off of the logged in users token. And, it thinks even that my forks are useful. Bouncy balls, chaotic pet child tax. Okay, so there we go. It worked. It got all the expenses. Now, finally, there's the admin level one, right? Now, I will say the logged in user is a part of the group, the Entra group that can access it. So it should work. So I'm going to say, summarize expense statistics across all users. So let's see if it decides to call, there we go, get expense stats for all users. Now this one should only work when I'm logged into an account that has the admin, and it worked. It got back everything across all users. And we can see, actually, this is all being stored in Cosmos. Let me refresh. So what we can see is that, this request here to add the forks got added to the Cosmos DB. We can see the user ID associated with it. So this is my Entra object ID, and the right amount and everything all got logged into the Cosmos account. Now, so that all worked. What does the actual code look like? That's where things get interesting. So let's open up the code file here, the Python file. This is all available for you to look online as well. So, we bring in a lot of stuff from FastMCP. We're also bringing in MSAL SDK, which integrates with Entra. And that's the heart of what we need to do this. So we set up the Azure provider. This comes from the FastMCP SDK. So they've already built this for us. So we just have to pass in our Entra application. So here I've got the Entra app registration. And I automatically created this using a script that sets this all up correctly. So we pass in the client ID, the client secret, the tenant ID. We're doing a single tenant login, the Entra base URL. That's actually the MCP server base URL, the scope. And we do need a way of storing the clients since we're using DCR. So we're using Cosmos DB in production. So if you look at our Cosmos DB store, you'll also see an OAuth clients container there that's storing the clients. And so that is all configured. Now, we additionally are using confidential client application from MSAL, and we're going to use this. We only need this for that one tool that needs to check group access. So we'll see this used much later. And yeah, so let's look at let's see. So then we also have this middleware here. And what this middleware does is it gets called on every tool call. So it checks the current access token. This is a function from the FastMCP SDK. It grabs the token, it looks at the claims in the token and grabs the OID, and that is the Entra object ID. And then it sets that in the state on every tool call and every resource read. Then we set up the FastMCP server with the Entra Auth provider and with our middleware, both for logging and for that user token ID setting. And then we have the tools, right? So this first one, add user expense. Down here, it gets the user ID from the state. And remember, that was set from the middleware. And it puts that into the Cosmos DB item. Then when we want to get the user's expenses, we once again look for the user ID. Barf it if it's not there. Otherwise, we can pass it into our Cosmos DB query and get back those items. And here we have partitioned by user ID since we expect to often be querying based off user ID. So that's a nice thing to partition our database based on. Now, where things get really interesting is this get expense stats. So we get that access token. And then what we do is we ask MSAL to use that token to acquire a token specifically for the Graph API. So it gets back a new access token that's specifically for the Graph API and gets the access token from there. And now we've got that access token, we can use it to call the Graph API. So we have this function here that makes a call to the Graph API, so /v1/me, and we're checking to see, is the current user a member of this admin group ID? So we pass in this admin group ID, it does a filter, and as long as the count is 1, then it means that they are a member. So you can see that when we call this API, we are passing in that Graph access token. And that way, this call is on behalf of this user. So we do that call, and if we find out that they are an admin, then we're able to go forward and do the query across all the users. So that's really interesting because it means we can have tools behave differently based off of not just the user ID, but also what groups a user is a part of. You could also use similar flow in order to use other Graph APIs, like if you wanted to share something in SharePoint or OneDrive or anything like that, then you would just have to use the Graph API with that token. Now, when you set up the app registration, that's all in auth and init.py. So you may need to add additional scopes to your Entra app application to make it happen. You also need to programmatically grant consent to the service principal associated with the Entra app registration. And that's what allows this on behalf of flow to work in this MCP scenario. So there you go. I think it's really exciting. I think there's a lot you could do with this. So definitely check out the code and let us know if you run into issues and have any questions about how to achieve what you want to do with FastMCP plus Entra. All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye.